Ladies and gentlemen, CNN, The Guardian, AP News. You can read the headlines. Bondi, grand jury review of Obama-era origins of Russiagate. The Guardian, Bondi seeks grand jury. CNN, Attorney General Bondi orders prosecutors to start grand jury criminal probe of everyone involved in setting up and framing President Trump. In a second, you will hear from President Trump. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Your support via Super Chat is greatly appreciated. I'll keep it quick. You can hear from President Trump and Tulsi Gabbard in just a couple of seconds. They set up and framed Trump. He's playing James Brown, the big payback on continual loop. All the evidence is there. Bondi, I don't have any inside knowledge, but almost certainly, with virtual 99.9% certainty, the way they went after Trump, I think with high confidence. And they used only confidence levels when they went after Trump. There was zero evidence. There was not one shred of actual evidence. It was all conjecture or hearsay, innuendo, and it was fabricated nonsense, literally purchased and funded by the DNC, the Clinton campaigns. Tulsi Gabbard has the goods. The DOJ now has all the evidence. The indictments are almost certainly already written. Everything else from here on out is a formality. They will start indicting people. I do believe Clinton will be indicted. I think that's a virtual certainty before midterms and a whole bunch of other people. I think that Comey and everybody from Comey, McCabe, Brennan, Clapper will turn on Clinton, or vice versa. Could be that Clinton turns on them. But they set up and framed Trump. There was not one shred of actual evidence. It was all fabricated or purchased by Democrats. That is an absolute fact. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Let's get started to my Super Chat. Your support is greatly appreciated.
You know, the only other adversary of ours who's...
Hold on. Before you enjoy the soulful sounds of Madam Secretary, hold on one second.
Has been caught directly. So people say, oh, you know, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highlighted.
I think that President Trump's administration initially is stating that President Obama began all of this. He did, but at the behest of Hillary Clinton, who purchased it. They're talking about President Obama. They're going to indict Hillary Clinton, and I think President Obama will actually be helpful, and we'll talk about that in a second, in indicting Clinton.
Highly classified. Well, the highly classified's been released, and what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level.
President Trump today calling out former President Obama after DNI Tulsi Gabbard sent a criminal referral to the DOJ related to her claims that Obama-era officials manufactured and politicized intelligence to create the Russia collusion narrative in 2016. Intelligence that those officials have said they had great confidence in.
John Brennan and Jim Comey and I are part of the group that were tasked by President Obama to put together all the reporting we had on the Russian interference, and which we did. And then, of course, on January 6th, we issued our intelligence community assessment documenting the Russian interference, in which we had very high confidence in the evidence that we presented.
Gabbard.
They were, quote, tasked by President Obama, so Clapper is blaming President Obama at just at the tiny hint of an investigation years back. He said, hey, it's not me, it's President Obama. And they had high confidence. Read the ODNI report. The other day, I did a live stream or an upload, and I showed you can go and I probably should have shown it now, but you can go and look at the ODNI report when the indictments take place, and they will. Before midterms, probably in the next 4 or 5 months. You can read the ODNI report, the Director of National Intelligence Clapper's report. It was only high confidence to moderate confidence that Russia tried to interfere in 2016. You have to be a complete imbecile to believe that. Democrats at that time, I don't have Twitter, I don't have Facebook, but I had Twitter at that time. I don't have Instagram. They were giddy. The hubris, the arrogance, the overconfidence was unbelievable. They were almost drunk with this hubris. Oh, that's all you have? The DNC emails, every single drop of emails that showed that Democrats were conspiring to cheat Bernie Sanders, and that Clinton, had private servers with top secret intelligence on them. They didn't care. They thought they would win in a landslide. I was telling everybody I was the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post. And according to the Washington Post, I was the unofficial scribe of Sanders' the most hardcore voters. It's embarrassing to them and to me also. I should have voted Trump 3 times in a row. I did 2 times in a row. But they, for not 1 second, thought that Russia or any other country could stop Clinton. And then they lost. Then they needed a scapegoat. Then they lied for 10 straight years. And now they're saying, whoa, it's a stunt. Why are you even bringing it up? Because the perpetrators don't have the right to erase history and all the criminal activity that they likely committed. You can't lie. 18 U.S. Code 371. You cannot deceive the United States of America and the electorate and its citizens utilizing your government position. And that's what they did. 18 U.S. Code 371. I wrote about that in the Federalist.
Also teeing up that there will be more declassified documents coming this week. Ahead of that, here's what we've learned so far. December 7th, 2016, the assessment reiterated that Russia did not tamper with election infrastructure. Just 1 day later, the editor of that assessment canceled the brief, quote, based on new guidance. By December 9th, 2016, Obama convened National Security Council principals and ordered a new assessment. And on January 6, 2017, the new unclassified assessment was released. Obama's office today firing back, issuing the following statement. Out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response. But these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. Nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016.
A widely accepted conclusion is meaningless. There is no such thing as widely accepted. It's certainly not widely accepted by the country. President Trump won 2 elections, and he won in 2024 after 4 years, after the country suffered through 4 years of Biden. Nobody believed any of the nonsense that Clapper and Brennan and Comey and Hillary Clinton funded. Trump was never a plot by the Kremlin or the Russians to inform you of how utterly inept and corrupt Democrats were, cheating Bernie Sanders in 2016. You'd have to be an imbecile to believe any of it. Democrats had a very corrupt, they had scandal after scandal. They did it to themselves. Then they blamed Russia, and then they blamed Trump. And now people who committed crimes are going to get indicted. I do believe that Trump is going to indict Clinton.
Presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. These findings were affirmed in a 2020 report by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee, led by then Chairman Marco Rubio. Joining me now to react is the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Director Gabbard, give me your response to what we heard from former President Obama there. He's saying that none of this makes any sense, that this is a distraction. What do you say to that?
It's the art of deflection coming from former President Obama, as well as his friends who are still in Congress today, and Senator Warner and Congressman Jim Himes, really all basically saying that exact same statement, which doesn't actually address the issue that was revealed in great detail in the over 100 documents that we released last week, and the documents that we will be releasing later this week, that point to the undeniable fact that you laid out in your introduction to this segment, is that the intelligence community had one assessment, that Russia did not have the intent or capability to try to impact the outcome of the U.S. election leading up to Election Day. The same assessment was made after Donald Trump was elected by the American people as president in 2016, defeating Hillary Clinton. And it wasn't until after that pulled President's Daily Brief document that you referenced that the Principals Committee was called in the National Security Council, And President Obama then directed Obama's DNI James Clapper to lead the effort to create this new intelligence community assessment that detailed not if, but how Moscow attempted to influence the outcome of the U.S. election. So this is the thing that I think people should pay attention to, is neither the message from President Obama's office, neither the statements coming from Democrats in Congress today and their friends in the propaganda media. None of them are addressing this fact that there was a shift, a 180-degree shift from the intelligence community's assessment leading up to the election to the one that President Obama directed be produced after Donald Trump won the election, that completely contradicted those assessments that had come previously. The second thing I want to address that's very important, Lara, is that you in the clip that you played, you saw John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey stated with high confidence this January intelligence community assessment that they drafted at the direction of President Obama. The fact is that they used already discredited information like the Steele dossier. They knew it was discredited at that time, yet they used it as a source for this document that they claim to have high confidence in. They used intelligence that some of these intelligence community professionals rejected previously because of the lack of credibility and the lack of the ability to vet with any kind of confidence whether or not that information or intelligence was accurate and could be used for an assessment. There's a long laundry list of facts and intelligence reporting that directly contradict the statement coming from President Obama's office and those who are trying to deflect away from what actually happened, which was after Donald Trump was elected, led by President Obama, there was an effort to create a document that would serve as a foundation for what would be a years-long coup against President Trump, therefore trying to subvert the will of the American people who sent him to the White House in 2016.
Well, it's
So I don't think they're going to indict President Obama, primarily because, number one, he had to face Clinton in the 2008 primary, when they kind of had a primary that actually functioned. They cheated Bernie Sanders in 2016. Democrats cheated Biden in 2024. Biden won his primary. And so the dirty tricks and the really nasty political, the nasty politics emanates from the Clintons. Again, it was Hillary or the Clinton campaign, the DNC, that started the birther myth. Okay, that was not Trump. That was the Clinton campaign. And so they purchased the Steele dossier. They went after Trump and helped set up and frame Trump through a dossier, then published by BuzzFeed News that no longer exists now. And then you had a whole bunch of journalists for 10 years pumping nonsense and lies and fabrications and absurd and a hoax. It was all lies that emanated and were funded by the Clinton campaign, the DNC. They're the ones who were saved by Comey, James Comey, and then James Comey. If you live by the Comey, I guess your candidacy will experience something by the Comey. So James Comey wrote the Comey letter, which sunk Clinton's campaign because top secret intel or classified data was being forwarded to Anthony Weiner. That's literally testimony by James Comey to Dianne Feinstein. So he testified to that, and that's why he wrote the Comey letter. That's what sunk Clinton's campaign. It wasn't Russia. It wasn't Trump. Bernie Sanders was a tool of the whole thing, and he was like a victim. And of course, he said nothing, but he was cheated. And everyone found out, and then they blamed the people. They blamed another country for Americans finding out how corrupt they were, and then they framed and set up Trump. So that's the political party you're dealing with. And the Clinton campaign, see, there's a chance that Clinton doesn't get indicted and that everybody else gets indicted, but that's like a 2% chance, I think. I think there's a 99% chance. I think that Pam Bondi's already written the indictment. Clinton, the DNC, purchased and funded the Steele dossier, which helped start all of this nonsense. And so you're not dealing with Bernie Sanders, you're dealing with Trump. President Trump is not going to allow this. The whole EP thing has nothing to do with like people are obsessed with that. It's like that. Okay, EP, the files list. He's a Democratic donor. He gave $20,000 to Clinton. He gave $10,000 to Schumer. He gave to Democratic candidates, almost primarily Democratic candidates. And it was New York City prosecutors that lowered his status. They couldn't find a grand jury to indict EP, but they did so with Trump and the hush money in 2 seconds. So that list, people who flew to that island were not named Trump. Trump didn't need to. He had his own plane. He didn't need to engage in any of that stuff. Okay, if he paid $100,000 to Stormy, allegedly, so that's like a business transaction. Stormy was an adult. Completely different from what Democrats are accused of having done. But let's continue.
Amazing that you are now releasing all of this. And Tulsi, I have to tell you, for those of us who lived through it, thank you. I think it's great that we're getting this information out. You say there is more information, there are more documents to be released. Anything you can tell us on that?
We will be releasing these documents shortly in the wake of the release that we did last week. I'm very encouraged by the fact that we have whistleblowers coming forward who are intelligence community professionals who were there when this happened and who were disgusted by it and are heartened at the possibility and the hope that the truth will see the light of day. And of course, the most important thing is that the American people see accountability, which is why we're referring and have already sent all of the documents that we have currently and any others that we get in the future to the Department of Justice to bring about that accountability, to ensure that the integrity of our democratic republic exists, that the American people can have faith and trust that who they vote for in our elections to be elected will actually be respected by those who are leaving power.
Amen to that. Well,
Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard joins me now. All right, Director, tell me this story about how you found this evidence.
Well, as you know, Jesse, the integrity of our democratic republic, of our elections, is of paramount importance to the American people. Knowing what had occurred previously, the things, this Russia hoax thing that was called a conspiracy, I wanted to get to the bottom of the truth of what actually happened.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, President Trump, the way this is being presented, marketed, this is all fact. This is 100% fact. Trump was set up and framed. He's not going to go after President Obama. There's zero political capital in doing so. He's going to go after the people who have run the Democratic Party or the most important or powerful individuals within the Democratic Party. Primarily Clinton. So I think the Pam Bondi's already, I have no clue, but I think she's already written the indictment. And prosecutors have already written the indictments. Because 18 U.S. Code 371 is just one statute. You cannot lie and deceive the American public, knowing that it was false. So people knew. They literally purchased a dossier, knowing that it was compiled for a purpose. The purpose was to disparage Trump. Okay, it was called opposition research. That's what the purpose of the dossier was. You can't hide behind intent. See, a lot of Democrats and Republicans, but a lot of politicians are very good at separating their actions, at removing themselves from their actions through, different layers of legal and political protection. But there's no way to deny anymore, especially with this declassified information. They knew that they were setting up an innocent man. Trump was an innocent man. You'd have to be a complete imbecile to think that Russia wanted you to know that Bernie Sanders was cheated. Everybody knew this before the DNC emails. The DNC emails confirmed that. We already knew Biden, for example, was one fry short of a Happy Meal. Poor man, God bless him, committed crimes, but okay. I don't want him to, I'm a human being. I'm not like a rabid tribal, into tribalism the way the left or many Democrats are. You should never have been catapulted into the office of the presidency, but he was. And then George Clooney wrote that letter. And so it's like the way Democrats work is, in a way, they do what they're told. They'll believe what they're told to believe. And it's like the cult or the dear leader or the deity is not Trump. Nobody votes for Trump because he's a deity. They vote for Trump because he enforces immigration laws, he's against never-ending wars and sending Americans to war, and he wants tariffs to bring home manufacturing. 3 basic fundamental goals of this administration. Can you name 3 goals of Democrats during Biden's administration? 0. Nobody can name even 1 goal. That's why he was forced out by George Clooney in Hollywood. And so they set up and framed Trump. We didn't have the Durham probe was a collection. It was a way to collect evidence for an actual Justice Department that wanted to get to the bottom of things. But anyway, let's continue. You're going to see indictments likely probably in the next 4 or 5 months.
Happened here. This was obviously important to President Trump, but again, is an issue of importance to every single American in this country and the future of our country as a republic. So shortly after coming into this position as Director of National Intelligence, I formed a special team to investigate this issue. I got to tell you, it wasn't easy. There were a lot of deep state obstacles that exist still within the intelligence community. But ultimately, we had a whistleblower who came forward that brought some critical pieces to this story. And we were able to discover these documents and find these documents that really pointed to President Obama directing his national security leaders in James Clapper and John Brennan to manufacture this January 2017 intelligence community assessment. The investigation that I led at ODNI that we released last week, Friday, provided a lot of those foundational building blocks and proof for what we know happened. The report that we released today, the House Intelligence Committee Oversight Majority Staff report that investigated that January 2017 assessment that President Obama had manufactured with fake intelligence in order to achieve, knowingly using false intelligence in order to get to the conclusion that he wanted to promote to the American people that Putin had acted in favor of President Trump winning that election in.
And Tulsi Gabbard is absolutely brilliant, a million times more intelligent than Clapper and everyone around, all the intel chiefs under President Obama. But here's my humble opinion. It didn't serve President Obama. It didn't help President Obama to set up and frame Trump. It didn't help him at all. It helped Hillary Clinton. It helped Hillary. It didn't help Trump. It helped the Democratic Party, but mainly Clinton, because they spent, $1.5 billion, $2 billion, something outrageous. It was the greatest political catastrophe of all time. Every single person online, except for me, except for Sticks, X, and Hammer, and me, and maybe some other people, I was telling everyone that Clinton would lose. You could look at the poll numbers and see they were dwindling, not because of any emails or not even because of the Clinton, the email scandal. It was Bernie Sanders. His campaign was rising when Democrats did what they did even before the emails. The way that they handled the primary. Everybody knew that Bernie Sanders was being cheated even before the emails confirmed it. That had nothing to do with Russia. But you could tell that Clinton really stood for nothing other than a quest for power. That's it. She was the ordained, and you could see this like cult-like journalism and, it was like absolute hysteria and euphoria. Anyone who didn't fall in line was, demeaned, insulted. I don't have Twitter, I don't have Instagram, Facebook, but the way it was online, they were rabid. The Clinton Democrats or supporters of Clinton or anyone who just said, I want Democrats to win, were like completely rabid, insulting everybody, demeaning everybody. And after they lost that fateful day in the Jacob Javits Center, they couldn't fathom losing. It was like they were mortified beyond belief. Their entire political reality was crushed. So they needed a scapegoat. And they lied through their teeth for 10 years. Then they lied about Biden. Now they're lying about a whole bunch of things. But it's like, it didn't suit President Obama. He had already finished his second term. So they're saying right now, President Trump's administration is saying, look, President Obama started all of this. You go for the stars, and then you get the obvious. President Obama led this because he was president. It helped Clinton. The Clinton campaign funded everything, and the DNC. So Clinton's going to get indicted, almost certainly. Now, I don't have any inside knowledge. I'm just saying, the Steele dossier, if Giuliani and Trump had purchased the dossier, there would have been 2,000 books already written about how diabolical and despotic and un-American the Republicans' dossier on Hillary and Bill and everybody else was. But because it was the other way around, they don't care. But anyway, let's continue. Indictments are going to be imminent. They're basically imminent.
2016. The report we released today, line by line, goes through it, dissecting and debunking the knowing falsehoods and lies that were included in that assessment with the.
Or Comey could, really quickly, Comey could turn on Clinton, or Clinton can actually turn on President Obama and Comey and Clapper and Brennan. The likelihood that they all turn on Clinton is far greater.
Specific intent to undermine the legitimacy of President Trump, to subvert the will of the American people who had just voted to elect Donald Trump in 2016, and to, in essence, launch this years-long coup against President Trump that lasted throughout the 4 years of his administration back in 2016.
You mentioned, Director, that there's, I guess, deep state actors who are still trying to prevent the truth from coming out. What do you mean by that?
There are still people, won't surprise you, within the intelligence community who don't want this information to see the light of day. Some of them may be implicated in the crafting of it. Others are concerned about people being embarrassed.
And that's why there's no statute of limitations on this, because the conspiracy or the people conspiring are still conspiring. That's if they're hiding, if anybody is hiding information at this point, 10 years later, that's a 10-year-old conspiracy. It's people who are conspiring with one another, people working to hide the truth, still to this day. That's why there's no statute of limitations.
Embarrassed. Others are concerned about accountability and what else we will discover as we continue down this path towards the truth and bring about accountability for the American people. That's really what this is all about, and why it does such a disservice. I was standing there in the White House press briefing room and hearing some of these crazy questions being asked by members of the media who are trying to distract and deflect away from the historic expose that we have brought forward that once again puts into question the American people's ability to trust the integrity of our democratic republic. And the reason why that is, and it's similar to the deep state actors who have been trying to stop us from releasing this, is that we have members of the media who were complicit in this from the very beginning, who were leaked early copies of this, or at least lines from this January 2017 Obama manufactured intelligence assessment. They printed what they were fed. People like Ellen Nakashima from the Washington Post, who, by the way, went on to win a Pulitzer Prize because for years she was so good at lying and not telling the truth to the American people that they gave her an award for it. These people are still here. Ellen Nakashima is still harassing people who work within the intelligence community who are calling up and reporting her, using burner phones to try to ask them harassing questions. There are a lot of deep state actors still here within Washington. President Trump wants us to find the truth. I want to find the truth. The American people deserve the truth, and they deserve accountability, which is why I'm really glad to see that Attorney General Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice announced the creation of a strike force team today, specifically to get after all the intelligence and evidence that we have gathered. We have more coming, and to determine the path forward
to bring about that accountability.
Are we forward to hearing from you and from the strike force, because this is information everybody deserves to know.
So brand new revelations.
There's 100% going to be indictments. That's not even, and you're not going to, it's not, this isn't the Durham probe, and this isn't the EP files, which, again, was handled poorly, but that points to, when Democrats say this is a stunt, this is just a stunt to distract from the EP files. The EP files, that's a Democratic scandal. That's a scandal of the Democratic Party. EP was a Democratic donor who gave to Clinton, Schumer, and others.
Into the alleged Russia hoax, a trove of declassified documents revealing evidence that the Obama administration manufactured and politicized intelligence during Trump's 2016 election.
The documents released by the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, described secret meetings after Trump's victory where Obama officials directed the intel community to leak reports that Vladimir Putin was personally involved in the U.S. election hack. This after the intelligence community repeatedly determined that Russia was not trying to influence the election by cyber means.
Here with more is DNI Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi, thanks for joining us. And some of those individuals were literally the leaders of the intelligence community under President Obama. How significant is these documents that you've released?
Thank you so much. And thanks for focusing on this issue that these documents have really brought to the forefront, because it's one that doesn't just affect Democrats or Republicans. It's not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an issue with such significant impact that it should concern every American, because it has to do with the fabric and integrity of our democratic republic. That we had a situation here where in the months leading up to the 2016 election, the intelligence community assessed, and this is what the documents detail, the intelligence community assessed essentially Russia doesn't have the tools, the capability, or the intent to try to change the outcome of the U.S. presidential election. Donald Trump pulls off a historic victory.
And why wouldn't Russia want a private server in the White House? Why wouldn't they want servers like Clinton had? If Clinton had servers with top secret intelligence on them, why wouldn't Russia want Hillary over Trump? Somebody who was a businessman, who was a billionaire, who can't be. See, the way Democrats work is they accuse Trump of what they would be guilty of, or their character flaws. They're like, he's going to be blackmailed. He's going to be, there's going to be leverage against him. He was in a hotel room and they're using that information. Trump wouldn't care about that. If he was in a hotel room and there was like some kind of salacious thing, he'd make t-shirts of it. And he'd become a billionaire 2 times over selling the merchandise. Okay. And people would buy it. It was like, you know what? The Democrats, they don't get it. They're like, oh, he's a hotel. But that's like what Democrats would do. That's what Democrats do. EP, we'll just call him EP, was a Democratic donor. So when Democrats say, oh, this was a stunt, it's like, nah. The EP files are almost certainly corrupted and altered because 10 years you had Biden's administration and 8 years of President Obama's administration. You had all that time to just accuse Trump of things he didn't do. Okay, and if Trump was in any part of the EP files, they would have already released it in 2015. Donald Trump is the absolute worst thing to ever happen to the establishment in D.C. If he was in those EP files, the second he ran for president, it would have been released. So that's complete nonsense. What took place is you're going to have evidence now to prove that they set up and framed an innocent man. And that's what this is all about.
Against Hillary Clinton in November of 2016. Even in the days after that election, the intelligence community continued their consistent assessment that reflected the same thing in the months leading up to the election. All of a sudden, in the early days of December, there was a president's daily brief that was drafted. This is put together by the different elements of the intelligence community that reflected that same assessment. Russia did not try to hack the election, in essence. That PDB, that document was pulled hours before it was supposed to be published for the president to see that following morning. That document was never published until we released it yesterday. One day later, President Obama calls a meeting of his National Security Council, his top officials, to be held on what they called a sensitive topic. And the results of that meeting, which we released yesterday, and these over 100 documents that talk about in detail how President Obama and his team, he directed a manufactured piece of intelligence that detailed not if, but how Russia tried to influence the outcome of the United States election that President Trump won in November of 2016. This document was then used as the foundation for everything that came next. It was essentially a years-long coup that was launched against President Trump before he even had the opportunity to take his oath of office.
And the moment you've all been waiting for. By the way, I don't dislike Hillary Clinton, the way like Democrats are like rabid and, completely hysterical and apoplectic pertaining to Trump. I don't dislike the Clintons. They are political creatures. They're amusing to me in many ways. And Hillary Clinton is a fighter. She fights. Did she commit crimes? Almost certainly. Okay, which private servers with top secret intelligence on. How do you transfer top secret intelligence on servers? It's like literally impossible to do so legally. But check this out. I find this very amusing. I don't get this Pavlovian response, this like anger when I see the Clintons. It's just very amusing to me. God bless Hillary Clinton. She committed crimes, but she almost certainly will be indicted, or she'll turn on Comey and others. But I think that she will be the first to be indicted. But check this out.
Anywhere near as good as the Russians is China. So why should Russia have all the fun? The only other adversary of ours who's anywhere near as good as the Russians is China. So why should Russia have all the fun? And since Russia is clearly backing Republicans, why don't we ask China to back us?
I hereby tonight ask China.
That's right.
It was a coup to.
So you have Maddow saying, I hereby. And so they went after Trump for literally asking, through a microphone, the Kremlin for help. So then they took it seriously. And then years later, Maddow and Hillary Clinton are doing the same thing, and they're supposed to. What is it? Is it serious? Is it not serious? Like, who knows? Who knows what is going on? The machinations. What does that even mean? Well, maybe China will be on our side. Well, actually, we already know. They were probably speaking the truth there in a rare moment.
Overthrow a democratically elected government, a coup carried out by the intelligence apparatus of this country, by the deep state, by Hillary Clinton and the Democrat Party. The new information that has been revealed by the Director of National Intelligence and by the FBI eliminates any scintilla of doubt about the intention, the premeditation, the planning and orchestration of this conspiracy. It meets all of the criminal elements of a seditious conspiracy against the United States. It meets the criminal elements of an insurrection.
Well, subsequently, under penalty of perjury, while under oath, Hillary Clinton's own campaign manager confirmed that there was such a plan and that Hillary approved it. It is the greatest political scandal that we hopefully will be the last that we'll see in our lifetime.
First, you heard Hillary Clinton pushing Trump-Russia hoax with Rachel Maddow, and then that was Stephen Miller and CIA Director John Ratcliffe on newly declassified documents in the Durham Annex indicating Hillary Clinton created Trump-Russia to distract the media away from her own FBI probes that Democrats feared would cause Hillary to lose to Trump in 2016. Joining us now, South Carolina gubernatorial
Falvey Pollard, thank you to my super chat. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Greatly appreciated. Thank you, Falvey.
candidate. Congratulations for that, Congresswoman Nancy Mace from House Oversight. Thank you so much for joining us. What's your reaction to this? Hillary Clinton had to change the headlines because the FBI was probing the Clintons' serious conflicts of interest in their own pay-to-play scandals, that the Clintons were selling access to Clinton Foundation donors to have access to Secretary of State Clinton and the Obama State Department. What's your reaction to this?
Well, if this is true, it sounds like Hillary Clinton broke the law and Hillary should be in handcuffs. And I hope that when charges are referred, that this doesn't become another Benghazi, because I am, like every other hardworking American, sick and tired of people, politicians especially, breaking the law, flaunting the Constitution, being a threat to democracy, and having no consequences. And we need real consequences here, and I believe in the leadership of the Trump administration.
Yeah, the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi is moving on a federal grand jury to hear evidence about this. We don't know who could be targeted with indictments. Again, this is...
Look, President Trump, imagine a person who Trump survived 10 years of the entire American government political system, 2 political parties trying to destroy him. And the most powerful adversary he has is now not very popular within the Democratic Party. She once ruled over the Democratic Party, more so than even Bill Clinton. And now not so much, because the Democratic Party is like, it's like a castle where the walls have been, completely, torn down and the castle has already been invaded and there's like nothing there. And so what do you think Trump's going to do? Not indict Clinton just because, nothing's ever going to happen. Rome wasn't built in a day. Okay. Oh, the EP files. The EP files is a Democratic scandal. It's not even about Trump. If he even flew over that island, it would have been he flew over the island in 2015, declassified, game over. He flew over the island. So it's like Trump is like light years, has nothing to do with EP. Except that one photo. It's like seeing a photo of, Harvey Weinstein and Oprah, or like any other celebrity. So, oh, look at that photo. It's like, well, he had his own plane. He didn't have to go to any islands. So, he wasn't into it. And it's like, that's a Democratic Party fiasco. Yet another deviant fiasco of the Democrats. Hollywood and the music industry were consistently after Trump. That should tell you the moral foundation of Trump's adversaries. But let's continue. So he's going to indict Clinton. It's a virtual certainty. I have no knowledge. I could be wrong. I don't think so. I don't think I'm wrong.
It's premature. We're just in the beginning stages of this. But, Congressman, the details of this are pretty damaging. Hillary was in damage control in 2016. The FBI was investigating the, quote, grift and graft with the Clinton Foundation. That's what the media called it. The AP had discovered, listen to this, the AP discovered that more than half of the private individuals who met with Secretary of State Clinton in the first half of her tenure were Clinton Foundation donors. Those 85 donors gave a huge $156 million combined to the Clinton Foundation. Congresswoman, that's more than half of the Clinton Foundation's budget in 2015. And then you had nations like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait giving money to the Clinton Foundation, doing business before the Secretary of State Clinton, and Bill Clinton taking in massive speaking fees paid by entities with interest before the Obama White House.
Sounds like a lot of pay to play, and we saw this with Joe Biden as vice president. This is the Democrat playbook. And quite frankly, she should be indicted for these things. And this is what transparency looks like. And I hope that we follow the full letter of the law and provide as much transparency and accountability to the American people, because they tried to take Donald Trump out with lies and with hoaxes, and he stood the width of the storm. He withstood it all to become president of the United States. And this was just a way for her to cover up her transgressions and what she was doing, fleecing not just Americans, but fleecing other nations.
33,000 emails deleted from her private home computer. The FBI was investigating.
Listen, I didn't hire a team.
And the way the media and Democrats painted, oh, we're talking about this again. It's like, actually we are. You can't be a perpetrator of hoaxes and lies and fabrications. You can't thrust the country into a new Cold War simply because you lost the 2016 election and then just get away with it. I mean, God forbid, there's some accountability. The Democrats were very, 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 very powerful. Hillary and Bill and Comey and McCabe, or I should say Comey and Clapper and Brennan were very powerful. Very, very powerful people. But the power emanated from government. Now government's run by Trump. So if your power, if your influence is derived from government and you lose twice, you lose in 2016 to a man and you not for 1 second treated him like a president. Then for 4 years of Biden, as Biden's handlers were controlling the White House, you tried to literally imprison him. Then coincidentally, there was an attempt on Trump's life where he turned in one direction. He turned in one direction, and it grazed his side of his head and his ear. A firefighter lost his life that day. And the question is, why did God allow Trump to live and allow the firefighter and allow the firefighter to lose his life? But now that Trump is alive, there has to be a greater purpose for President Trump to ensure that his life was not just, so that it wasn't just a coincidence that he moved in one direction. So Democrats and the entire American political establishment would have reveled that would have been their Zapruder film that they would have watched every day, but not in horror, not with, not in terms of, oh my God, this is the most horrendous thing we've ever seen, like with JFK. They would have looked at that and said, this vindicates, not everybody, but a lot of Democrats, a lot of liberals would have looked at this and said, this vindicates all of our contempt and vile, feelings towards Trump. It would have been the most diabolical Zapruder-like film. And he lived. And did he live not to ensure that, people who committed, if they committed crimes, they're going to be indicted. You ask yourself, did Hillary commit crimes? Did Brennan and Comey and Clapper, did they commit crimes? Yes or no? If they didn't, then I'm wrong. But do you think that God, it's like, it's very difficult to talk about God if you let one person live and one person not live. One person lost their life that day. But why was Trump saved that day? Why was he saved that day? I don't know. You tell me. I have no clue why President Trump, I thank God that he was saved. I thank God that he lived. But do you think that he doesn't, do you think that Donald Trump doesn't thank God? Of course he does. Do you think that he doesn't think that God has some kind of plan for him? That God has some kind of, expectation of him? I think so. BG, thank you. BG, yes. I agree with you. BG, thank you so much. Thank you, BG. Greatly appreciated. So I do think that President Trump's life being spared, I do think that Donald Trump, and I do think that it's not about retribution for him. I think that it's about protecting the country from the future diabolical plots of the next Republican or Democrat.
Out there, Liz Peake joining with this morning. Seems to me Democrats are in despair and they're turning to socialism as their way out. By the way, I notice another far left socialist, there's one in Seattle. Is this move to the...
Just the closeness of the loss that has been problematic for Democrats. It's also their failing to expire. What kind of idiocy is that? Americans have never wanted higher taxes, and they didn't last November. So I think they just have yet to acknowledge that they're in the wrong place.
Don't hold back, Liz. Whatever happens, do not hold back.
Yeah.
I want you to deal with this one, because you're saying that Hillary Clinton is finally paying for, quote, dirty tricks during the 2016 campaign. You're talking about dirty tricks during the Russia hoax, right? Do you think these investigations are going to hold her accountable?
I don't. I think that we're going to look. What price is she paying? She is paying.
I respectfully disagree, but let's continue.
With basically her political capital, her reputation, etc., just completely being destroyed. I don't think there's an American at large who thinks that Hillary Clinton is an honest and decent person. Imagine being her. That's what I was trying to imagine being in Hillary's shoes, watching all of this unspool for a decade, Stuart.
But that's the wrong analysis. Do you think Hillary Clinton says, "Oh my goodness, they've caught me. It's terrible. I feel so ashamed"? It's like they don't. When Hillary Clinton is indicted, the next day it'll be fundraising. Oh my God, look what they're doing. And every Democratic pundit and liberal pundit and progressive pundit will be, you see what Trump is doing? He's a despot, he's authoritarian. He's a tyrant. Not since the 30s and 40s have we seen this. That the day that Clinton is indicted will be like the biggest fundraising day for the foundation, whatever. She doesn't care at all. She doesn't care at all. If anything, it's like, okay, next fun, adventure. That's the way they see it.
All the dirty tricks that began with her campaign commissioning the Christopher Steele dossier, which led to a special prosecutor, tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer money wasted, an entire 4 years basically scuttled that could have been so incredibly productive. And by the way, re-electing Donald Trump, because I think you can connect the dots there. Voters basically understood that the left had been so opposed to everything Donald Trump wanted to do that they cost the country an enormous amount. So Hillary Clinton, it's astonishing to me that anyone is still in her camp. I can't understand it, because she's not just corrupt and dishonest. She has hurt America.
But that's unfortunately not the way the Democrats see things. That's not the way Clinton sees things at all. The second that Clinton is indicted, and I almost certainly believe that, I believe that almost certainly is going to take place. The second Hillary Clinton is indicted will be the beginning of millions of dollars in fundraising, and then it'll probably drop off. So the first month, it'll be like, oh my God. It'll circle the wagons, but there's nothing stopping the Justice Department. Pam Bondi, I think, has already written those indictments. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be doing 2 live streams a day. Be here tomorrow for the live stream, about like 2 p.m. Eastern. God bless you all. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, each and every one of you, for watching. And hit subscribe.